What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to the SI Sooners podcast. Got a lot going on this week, y'all. A lot going on this week. Porter Moser's new name is Porter Moser. We got the spring game coming up on Saturday, and we are going to preview it for you right here on the SI Sooners podcast. Ryan is going to catch you up on some recruiting, of course, because that's what he does. Should have seen him grind last week. That was impressive. And then Ryan, I guess it's just not the offseason covering Oklahoma football without the Norman Police Department getting involved.
Yeah, John, look, there's Arkansas wide receivers in the portal. Let's just hope that the Fayetteville PD stays out of the portal as well. They've got enough issues as they have.
That's Ryan Chapman. He's over in Norman. I'm John Hoover. I'm over in Tulsa. Appreciate you guys listening to the SI Sooners podcast, and thanks again for watching on my YouTube channel. SI Sooners, Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. We're growing every day. SI Sooners is our website. Allsooners.com is the address. Ryan, let's start with the big news of the week, man. Last Friday, I got a call saying that at least one OU football player had been detained, possibly arrested by Norman PD on Thursday night in the parking lot of a restaurant at the corner of Lindsay and Classen. My caller told me who the football player was, said he saw it with his own eyes, saw his face, was 1,000% sure it was him. I made a few phone calls, I dropped a few text messages, and by Friday afternoon we were able to get a comment from OU saying that 2 student athletes had been suspended. Huge story, right? Well, still pretty nebulous. OU could not confirm their identities for me, so we didn't have it. At first we didn't have their names. The Norman PD could not confirm their names for me either, so we knew who it was, but we couldn't quite say who it was. Man, it was a mess. It was a mess. But then, by then, middle of the afternoon on Friday, it was all over the message boards, various message boards around the internet. And at this time, you knew where there was smoke, there was fire. So I got it confirmed by an OU source. Actually, you got it confirmed by an OU source, told me on Friday night. And then on Saturday morning, I spent about 2 hours listening to the police scanner archives. And yeah, it was true. Police dispatchers, officers on the scene identified both players. Trajan Bridges and Seth McGowan were the 2 athletes who were suspended by OU. That is all still unofficial from the school, still not officially confirmed by the police, but we know, again, a source at the university identified them off the record, and we heard their names on the scanner. We heard their names on the 911 call. But the investigation's still going on. OU has suspended 2 players. No formal arrests have been made. No warrants have been issued. They're still gathering information. My calls today were not returned, unfortunately. I think Norman PD's having some kind of personnel issues going on at the moment. Hope they get that resolved in a good fashion. Hope it works out. If you guys are watching this, stay strong. I did get a heavily redacted incident report, which was useless. Listening to the scanner and the 911 call, it was Bridges who was detained by the police on Thursday night, and then that's when they started looking for Seth McGowan and a third person of interest. Norman police told me they know who the third suspect is. They didn't give me the name, but I'm told it's not a football player. I'm told it's not an athlete, and I think there's a legit question of whether it's actually a student. But Ryan, I guess what happened, according to the 911 call, is 2 or 3 individuals allegedly showed up at this guy's apartment. He claimed they were looking for weed or money. They allegedly ransacked his place. They allegedly took some designer shoes and a camera, according to the quote from the cop that I talked to. The alleged victim also says that they took an AR-15 pistol that belonged to him, allegedly. He also claims that they allegedly pistol whipped him with a Glock 19 handgun. Yikes. Now, this is getting serious. So, as I said, investigators are still gathering information. No arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. No warrants have been issued, at least as of 5 o'clock. That was about an hour and a half ago on Wednesday that I know of. Ryan, I know you had a long weekend covering recruiting, and we're going to get to a lot of that here and coming up. But trust me when I tell you this, man, you do not want to have to spend your weekend mornings scouring police scanner archives and 911 calls, Ryan.
Yeah, and if you're on the team, if you're in the coaching staff, in the hierarchy, John, that's also not the call you want to be getting, that, hey, we have two names of two of your student athletes that potentially may be wound up in all this. Now, like you said, John, investigations are ongoing. Everything is alleged at this point. No arrests, no warrants, exactly like that. But you have to think this is that one thing, John, when you're going into the offseason, especially with the expectations that Oklahoma has for this upcoming season, what the people on the outside are talking about and what the players during these spring availabilities have said about how their goal is to win a national championship. They believe that is their ceiling this year. The two things you don't want in the spring, John, are injuries and off the fields issues like this. So let's knock on a whole bunch of wood, because it doesn't sound like we've had any injury troubles, anything major like that, but you now have this kind of looming over. And John, it's been kind of weird doing the availabilities this week, knowing that no one that's being brought in front of us is involved, anything like that, but it's also just knowing that there potentially could be stuff going on in the back room, especially leading to a spring game where we're going to be focused on what the wide receivers are doing, since Lincoln Riley himself laid that challenge down. It's just all the kinds of stuff you want to avoid heading into any offseason, much less one where you're trying to prepare your team to go on a national championship hunt.
Yeah, and you say that, and that's the goal, and I agree, because I'm a nice guy. But the cynic, the dyed-in-the-wool fan, the savage win-at-all-cost fan is going to remind us, hey, this team hasn't had any real, bad dudes in a while. We need more bad dudes. If we're going to win a national championship, we need more axe murderers, theoretically speaking, hypothetically speaking, right? That's a tongue-in-cheek way, sort of saying that's how national championships used to be won. It's not necessarily that way now. The old school Miami guys, the guys who would get arrested midseason and get reinstated and go help their team win a national championship in January. I think those days are gone. I think you don't want bad dudes roaming your sidelines and roaming your locker room and your hallways. I think, and I know Lincoln Riley doesn't want that. So I told you, I was joking, somewhat joking, that, I've been doing this since 2004, covering the Sooners. And we used to get like 8 or 10 of these a year, six or 8, maybe 10 sometimes on a good year. We would get a lot of these. And what have we had? 2? We had Spencer Jones fighting in the bathroom, and now this, and that's 2 more, I think. Maybe 1 more. I can't remember last year too good because it was such a weird year. But for the most part, it was like nothing really happened last year. Guys were on their best behavior. 2019 was pretty quiet. Lincoln Riley runs a pretty tight ship. And so for this to be happening twice now in 4 months, some people might say, now I'm not sitting here saying I don't believe this. I'm not saying it myself, but I'm just saying there's going to be a faction of the fan base out there who are saying we need more gritty, street tough, pistol whipping. I disagree with that. I don't think you need them, but some people think you do. Anyway, I want to get back to the audio. Credit to Sooner Scoop and Tulsa World for grabbing those first. But I got to say, man, seriously, our boys and girls in blue, have you listened to that stuff? They literally speak in code. It's like 431. No, it's not. That's not right. It's like 431. And you're like, what'd they say? It's 604. It's like, what did he? I don't understand. Anyway, it's a nightmare. The nuggets you do pick up though, kind of like gold. They're rare and they're valuable, and you understand what they mean. Ryan, police scanners. Does that sound like a hobby you'd like to try?
I don't know, John. I think I'd like to start with the old school ham radio first. That way I could broadcast my own content. And then maybe we could work our way into monitoring everybody else's. Because that's the thing about the police scanner, John, is it's not a lot of fun until you strike gold like that. It's also why I'm not a prospector. But yeah, it's just one of those situations. And John, you mentioned what some people might say. My counter argument to that would be, and I think this is something you would agree with, the kind of guys you want on this team are guys that are going to be eligible to be playing on Saturdays. And regardless of whatever you think happened, like this is obviously Lincoln Riley, like you said, runs a pretty tight ship, and he's not afraid to come down and dole out discipline when guys step out of line. So the guys you want, John, are going to be the ones that understand what Lincoln Riley and the coaching staff's expectations are, abide by those expectations so they can be eligible to make plays on Saturdays. And that's what you're going to need. If you're really trying to chase down your first college football playoff win and make it to a national championship game that you can try to win, you are going to need all of that depth. I mean, if you look at the alleged position groups here, running back is a position group that, John, we've seen over the last 2, 3, 4 years. They take a toll. They're decimated by injuries. We talk about how that started last year when you had no Ramondre Stevenson due to a suspension. You had no Kennedy Brooks due to the opt-out. How slim pickings that got. You're one injury away from being right back in that scenario. So you hope that when it all works out, that maybe somehow, some way things have got messed around and we'll see these guys on Saturdays. But as of right now, just how things look, you just have to wonder. The depth looks like it might be tested again going into the year.
I think your ham radio handle should be Chappie. Is that all right? Is that all right with you?
Well, I think we could keep at Radios Ryan.
No. You got to ditch that for ham radio. It's a new world. It's a new audience. Chappie. Or am I thinking of CB where you got to have a handle? Like you're talking to the bear, and
we can pull out my old kindergarten nickname, the Chapstick. We'd go with that.
Breaker 19. This is Chapstick rolling down 119. So, if you guys want to listen to the police audio, the scanner, and the 911 call, which identify both players as the alleged robbery and assault, we obtained both of them as well. You can hear the audio of files right there on our website, allsooners.com. Ryan, I got asked by the guys on SiriusXM on Monday what this does to the football team. And, to kind of halfway go down the path that you just started, while these guys they're setting up the question and they're giving me kind of a half a second, right, to kind of compose my answer and think about what I'm going to say, my brain sat there silently saying, no, this is inconsequential to the football team. In the big picture, it's inconsequential. We're talking about a guy who was allegedly pistol whipped. We're talking about the possibility of two very promising young OU football players getting dismissed from the team, maybe getting kicked out of school, their lives ruined. I mean, by their own actions, allegedly, of course. But, what about the two deep? It didn't really factor into my thinking. But then as I started trying to answer their question on air, live, radio, right? I kind of settled in and I cut a path and I said, okay, here's what this could mean for Lincoln Riley's offense in 2021. I don't know if I did a thorough enough job, but let's address that right here, Ryan. Beyond their being suspended and not playing on Saturday in the spring game, if this thing is true, if it turns out very bad for them and they're not on the team in 2021, or they're made to sit out for an extended period of time, how does this affect OU's offense? Because frankly, there's a lot of hype, as you mentioned, around this team for making a national championship run. You start kicking 5-star wideouts off the team. Does it change that dynamic a little bit?
Yeah, let's start in that wide receiver room. And this is the one, John, where I'm not sure it makes as big an impact. Obviously, you want to go in with all the tools at your disposal, all of the talent that you can amass at the wide receiver position. But this is a group last year that it was missing Jaden Hazelwood totally due to injury. So you factor him back into the fold. Austin Stogner, similarly, we're going to slide him over to the wide receiver discussion just for now. Had that very scary injury at the end of last year, but by all accounts, he appears to be back, ready to roll. So you've got him healthy. You've got a Marvin Mims who was outstanding last season and sounds just as motivated as anybody else to take that step. You have to imagine a guy like Theo Weiss will want to continue to develop and wipe away what was not the best season for him. Then let's not forget Old Faithful, John. You got Drake Stoops, who's still in the mix competing. Bring in a Mario Williams, a Cody Jackson. And I'm just not sure you're going to miss Trajan Bridges a whole lot, John. Yes, he's got all that talent in the world, but as a freshman, limited snaps, that makes sense. We get it. Didn't touch the field until the Big 12 championship game last year. Like, it's hard for me to even factor him into the plans until we see him play a major role in this offense. And if this all turns out to be true, if he misses an extended period of time or is with the team in 2021, we will continue to not see what this offense looks like without him. So I'm not sure it's a huge blow. Where it gets kind of interesting is that running back room. Obviously, Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray, you would think those guys would be able to handle the load. They're both very versatile, especially what we're hearing about Gray and his ability to do a little bit of everything. But even if it's just, hey, what if, heaven forbid, some guy rolls an ankle and you're going in all of a sudden into the Cotton Bowl with Kennedy Brooks, maybe Eric Gray is the one that minorly rolls his ankle but just can't play at Texas. Now you've got Mikey Henderson, who's never played running back full-time behind him. You've got Marcus Major, who kind of tumbled down the pecking order last year when there was a vacuum at the top for snaps. Like, the room gets very thin very fast as far as experienced, bona fide guys, and McGowan was supposed to be that third guy, John. He was great in the passing game last year and kind of came on strong there toward the end of the year. So I think that while on paper, if everything goes right, if everything goes perfectly, you might not really notice it. But, John, this is football. This is college football. Unfortunate things happen, injuries happen, things like that, and you might need them for a game or two.
Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, we're giving you the end-all be-all preview for Saturday's spring game. Hey, listen up. Spring is here, but you know the seasons in Oklahoma. Hot one day, cold the next. That's a lot of work for your heating and air unit, but the guys at Trade Pros got you covered. Sign up for one of their no-hassle service plans. They'll come out twice a year and tune up your AC and your furnace, and you get priority scheduling and discounts. Just call Chris at Trade Pros, 405-316-0598. That's 405-316-0598. Or go to TradeProsOKC.com. Hey, are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman or a car dealership in Oklahoma City or a restaurant in Edmond, or maybe you're a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise and you just want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Well, then consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at all_Sooners. If you're on Twitter, you should follow SI Sooners at all_Sooners. Ryan is at Radios Ryan, and you can find me at John E. Hoover. Our website, allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. And you know, got to tell you guys, I've been saying since last July, since we started this podcast, that everything we post at SI Sooners is free. But that's about to change. It's about to change. We're almost there. We will have details for you guys on the website very soon. It won't be anything new. I said that wrong. It will be something new, not different. We're not changing what we're doing. We're adding to what we're doing. And I think you're going to like it. Find the video version of this podcast on my YouTube channel. That's John Hoover Media. The other channel is just plain old John Hoover. I think you can find that. Again, remember, I need you guys to subscribe to that other one. There are a few channels out there with my name on it, but most of them are not my channels. Those two are my channels. So once we get enough subscribers on that second channel, right there, that's where I want all my content to go. All right. And I won't have to beg you guys to subscribe on this podcast anymore. So go ahead right now. Please subscribe. I'll wait. Appreciate it so much. All right, Ryan, let's get into our spring preview, man. The day is almost here. It is Wednesday and game is Saturday, meaning I don't know if I've, outside of like going to like Ace, picking up a couple things, maybe a couple trips to Lowe's, I don't know if I've been in the car for more than like 10 minutes in a long time. Since my last trip to Norman, was it? I don't even remember when that was. It's been a while. Anyway, we got off the Zoom call today with Cale Gundy and two offensive linemen, Andrew Rame and Robert Conjal. And then on Monday, we talked to Calvin Thibodeau, plus defensive lineman Jordan Kelly, Joshua Ellison, and defensive back Justin Broyles. You need to get on our website and see what we've written about all those players because they had some really good things to say, I'm telling you. Anyway, we think that's going to be it for the interviews before the spring game, although we kind of heard today that they might trickle out 1 or possibly 2 more tomorrow. We shall see. Anyway, but now, having talked to every position coach on the team, Ryan, thankfully, and what feels like every player, give me your most compelling storylines from Saturday's scrimmage. We'll do a position preview watch here in just a second, but your most compelling storyline or position right now.
Yeah, John, I think today sparked actually what is now my most interesting storyline, which is who was going to win the center battle. It felt like initially early on in spring, we had heard a lot about Chris Murray and how he loved the center position, how he was getting acclimated. Well, today, enter Andrew Rame, who came in and noted how much he was loving center, how much he loved to feel in control of that offensive line, all the great things that Creed Humphrey left behind him in the way of advice, and just leading by example. So, John, I think we have a bona fide center battle to look forward to come Saturday. It'll be interesting to see if Chris Murray and Andrew Rame are on different splits of whatever we're calling the teams this year. Looking forward to whatever former players are coming in to coach the teams. Hopefully that's still a thing. But it'll be interesting to see if they're on different teams. We may see them go head-to-head at the center spot.
I think I'm going to have to go back and check the archives, but I think I said back when the spring started that Andrew Rame was going to win the starting center job. And I believe now more than ever after talking to him today, or after talking to Robert Conjal today, I think Andrew Rame is the man. I think he's going to come in, win that job, and be the next Creed Humphrey. We shall see. But, Ryan, my position of interest, my most compelling position anyway, is defensive back. I can't wait to watch those guys fight it out. So many names, so much talent, and really, if you think about it, so much still unknown. Justin Broyles, you'll remember, told me on Monday, it was a great quote. There are certain things that we don't allow anymore that we used to allow. There's a certain standard of excellence that we hold each other to day in, day out that wasn't here before. He said there's a standard of excellence that our coach holds us to that wasn't here before. So that's what we call the hammer quote in the business, right? I mean, Broyles is a senior. He's seen some things, man. But what about the personnel, Key Lawrence or Justin Harrington? Both guys I think are talented enough to be starters, but both guys may end up starting the season on the bench. Do they have the experience yet? Absolutely not, of course. But, man, they got talent. You look at a guy like Pat Fields. He's been hurt this spring, so Broyles has been rotating in with the ones at safety, free safety. But we've seen Justin Broyles have his struggles before, so you got to wonder if the momentum that Lincoln Riley mentioned, he's having a great spring, senior year, right? Is that going to hold up? You look over at the other safety, Delaren Turner-Yell. He's probably nailed that down for sure, right? Unless Harrington or Lawrence jumps up and demands some playing time, and then maybe DTY goes over to nickel. Maybe Fields goes to nickel, which has happened in the past. Maybe Jeremiah Cradell starts at nickel, and those guys stay where they're at, and the other guys stay on the bench. We've heard nothing but good things about Jeremiah Cradell at nickel, right? Does Harrington, who worked at corner this spring, does he stay at corner, or does he go to his more natural safety position? Or does DJ Graham and Woody Washington have those corner spots locked down with Jaden Davis rotating probably behind both of those guys? Or does Jaden Davis rise up and take one of their jobs? I love this competition. Every one of them, you've got like 9 or 10 guys for 5 spots. And Ryan, here's the beauty of where Alex Grinch has taken this defense in just 2 years. In the recent past, you could get away with bring in that other defensive back, right? 6 defensive backs in this situation because, let's call it what it was, there were some holes at some other positions, right? Well, the linebackers have no holes. We checked, 0 holes. And the D-line is better than it's been in 10 years. No holes there either. So, Ryan, those positions are locked in. You're going to have 4 guys on the D-line. You're going to have 3 linebackers, 2 linebackers, 3 linebackers, however you want to shape that up, that rush edge linebacker, and you're going to have 5 defensive backs. Those safeties don't have to play every snap now like they did, but which one comes in first? Who's the first guy off the bench? Who plays nickel? Heck, what does the nickel even look like this year, right? I know it looks different than it did last year at 5'9". Ryan, let's talk about some other positions. You went briefly into the running back situation talking about Seth McGowan. How do you think that shakes out on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you'll see is you'll probably see Kenny Brooks and Eric Gray on either side leading the way for their sides. And I think what we're going to have to look at is Eric Gray's pass blocking. That was kind of that buzzword that DeMarco Murray talked about. That would be the only thing that keeps him off the field for a majority of snaps as far as that loaded backfield look that Lincoln Riley likes to give at times. So that's what I'm going to really be paying attention to. And I guess Kennedy Brooks is just going to be, John, does Kennedy Brooks look like the Kennedy Brooks we remember from 2019? And I think he will, but it's always good to see that. So then after that, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in that Mikey Henderson versus Marcus Major battle, because that could play a huge role in who gets those key snaps that might be gone, maybe out of this running back room for a little bit of time or however long it ends up being, whatever that's going to look like. And also, look, if you expect Oklahoma to take that step on both sides of the football, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be grinding out these fourth quarters with big leads. Who's that guy that's going to be trusted to just go out there and not turn over the football to grind out the game between Major and Mikey Henderson?
Yeah, man, listen, now spring scrimmages, I've seen it a lot. They're a powder keg for running backs. So I say you get the ball on Saturday to Eric Gray maybe 6 to 8 to 10 times. Kennedy Brooks, 6 to 8 to 10 times. And then you bring in Marcus Major to just dominate, right? I'd have him carry the football 20 times if you have to. That's no disrespect to Marcus, but you know, number one, those other guys they're your frontline guys. They're your starters. They're going to be your starters this fall. You need Brooks and Gray to be healthy 100% this fall. And Marcus Major, frankly, he probably wouldn't mind the opportunity to prove himself a little more, get a little more work, get a little more tape for the coaches to evaluate and see what he can do. If he can whip up on that defense, then yeah, stick him out there against the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the rest of the schedule this year. He'll earn that time. And then, for me, Saturday, if I'm DeMarco Murray, if I'm Lincoln Riley, I want to see what Mikey Henderson can do at running back. He has switched positions for now, so give him the football 10 or 15 times. Let him get in a rhythm. Let him see what he can do. And then our man Todd Hudson gets every other carry. And I don't mean every other carry. I mean every carry that those guys don't get, Todd Hudson gets the rest. Got to keep your running backs healthy. Okay, Ryan, wide receiver. Again, you touched on it with Bridges. What do you think happens on Saturday?
Yeah, I think you're going to see Marvin Mims continue to take that step forward, but I'm really looking, and I think all eyes should be on Jaden Hazelwood here. He's coming in, finally healthy, John. He missed most of last year. He worked really hard to get back. Then it had the unfortunate situation where it looked like he was contact trace quarantine and then just didn't come back for the Cotton Bowl. And I totally get that. Last year was such a cluster as far as dealing with all the stuff on the field, off the field, whatever, rehabbing an injury, just that mental reset and coming back in fresh. I think that's the best thing that Jaden Hazelwood could have done for his body and for his mindset. So I want to see what he's going to do, what he can go out and do. And then I want to see what Mario Williams is all about, John. We've heard a lot about him. We've heard about his infectious personality and how quick he is. If Mario Williams and Cody Jackson are coming in, if those guys are coming in, John, and playing well from the jump, that's the best case scenario for Lincoln Riley, Coach Simmons, Coach Gundy, is you've got those young guys coming in and putting the heat on those older guys who you challenged to start off spring football. And so I'm really interested to see what Mario Williams looks like, and I'm just hoping that if Caleb Williams is as advertised, you'll have a quarterback on each side, and Rattler and Williams, that can come in and do everything you need from a quarterback standpoint to let those receivers either sink or float here in the spring game.
I'm going to piggyback off of all three of your guys that you mentioned. The main thing I want to see is Marvin Mims' move to the inside. I don't expect that to be 100% of the time. I think Lincoln Riley's going to move him around, shade him, split him out, take him to outside the numbers. He's going to move him all over the place. But I do expect him to kind of take on that CeeDee Lamb role, which is slot receiver, goes in motion, sometimes in front of the formation, sometimes behind. Either way, you're trying to create a mismatch somewhere. And, of course, you mentioned him. The talk has been of the spring. The talk of the spring has been Mario Williams. He was again today when we talked to Cale Gundy. Cale loves Mario Williams. I hope I didn't say Marvin Williams too many times. Mario Williams. We're going to see him a lot this spring, and I want to see him this fall. And I want to see him Saturday in the scrimmage. I guess with the football in his hands a lot, jet sweeps, maybe, reverses, end arounds, whatever you want to call them, screens underneath. I want to see him go deep. I want to see him catch something and get in traffic over the middle. Like CeeDee Lamb used to. That's an interesting role for him. And then if I'm Spencer Rattler, man, I'm giving the people what they want, and that is a steady diet of Mario Williams. And you know what else? A little Billy Bowman out there wouldn't be such a bad thing. Even if you don't mean it, if you're Lincoln Riley, just give your first 3 or 4 or 5 opponents something else to have to spend time looking at on film and practicing for. And then you mentioned Jaden Hazelwood, man. I think people are waiting for him to do something great, but it doesn't have to happen on Saturday. This is a scrimmage. This is a spring practice. It's been 12 months. If his knee is not, if it's not 100%, if it's 85% or 90%, then don't push it. Don't bother. Don't worry about it. Making plays is what next fall is for. Ryan, you mentioned Caleb Williams. I can't wait to see how far along he is. He's obviously physically gifted, but he's been here now since January. He's had a playbook since a little bit before that. So where is he mentally as far as picking up the offense? Listen to this. Lincoln's got a way of spoon-feeding his quarterbacks without letting them know he's spoon-feeding them. Like, when a little kid sits in dad's lap, right, and acts like he's the one driving and everybody's having a good time, but really it's dad. He's totally got his hands on the steering wheel down here, right? Well, that's what I think Lincoln Riley does to his young quarterbacks. He lets them think they're driving, but he's actually totally steering the ship. What do you expect to see from the quarterbacks on Saturday, Ryan?
John, I honestly expect to see great things because we know Spencer Rattler, he's said it. He's trying to take that extra step forward. He's had an entire spring where Lincoln Riley is paying that attention to him that Lincoln Riley pays to his starting quarterback. So I expect to see Spencer Rattler coming along, and I too am excited to see Caleb Williams. Look, I know for a fact that there's been excitement out of the Williams camp as to what he feels like he's done during the spring so far, and he feels like this could be an opportunity to go out and put on a show on his own. So I think that there's going to be a little bit of competitive spirit there of you've got Rattler not only wanting to show that he can do it, obviously he's taking that step forward, but I think you've got a guy who doesn't want to get shown up by the young buck on campus, and you've got a younger guy who understands that there's not a quarterback competition, anything like that, but he wants to say, look, I'm every bit as good as the guy that's starting right now, and here in a season, I'm going to treat you guys to a lot of fun. So I think it could be pretty competitive, and it's the competition, that healthy competition that you want, and that's why Lincoln Riley's never afraid to bring in those big guns into that quarterback room and have them all there together, because that competition just breeds excellence.
You left out Micah Bowens. Ryan, on defense, we hit on the defensive backs.
Oh, did I?
What about those linebackers? I don't think Deshaun White is in danger, right, of losing his job. He's a 2-year starter, and he's been pretty good. But with David Agwebu right behind him, I think Deshaun White's going to have to be better, a more dynamic, a more consistent tackler. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree, just because when you look at David Agwebu, that's that guy that if he puts it all together, it doesn't really matter who's in front of him, because when you've got those physical tools, John, those physical traits, the things that he can just do athletically, it's not a knock on anyone. He's just one of those one in a million, you want him to be the first off the bus and the one making all those plays. So for Deshaun White, that means that your margin of error is tightening. So he needs to go out and continue to take those steps forward and be better, because not only do you have an Agwebu down, you've got a Caleb Kelly who's experienced, hasn't played a ton of football in the last 2 years due to injuries, but he's a guy that wants to claw his way back into their rotation. You've got a young Shane Witter, who we were told might be one of the fastest players on the defense at his size that can go in there and do some things. So I don't think it's just David Agwebu. I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on both Asamoah and Deshaun White, because you have really capable guys who can rotate in behind you, and if they start making plays, they're going to start rotating for 2 or 3 plays instead of 1 play, and all of a sudden you're wondering where your snaps went. So I think that's one of those other positions, John, that you have to be on high alert and make sure that margin of error when you're in between the lines is very, very small, because you have plenty of capable guys that in an instant could come in and make that job their own with 2 or 3 great series.
To me, Ryan, right behind DBs, I think the most compelling position to watch on Saturday is going to be the defensive line. We have heard there's been some, from Calvin Thibodeau, some knick-knack injuries, he called it, things like that have been holding some guys back. So, listen, don't get down in the dumps if you don't see your favorite player out there on the field. Could be just a minor injury situation. But, man, Ryan, listen to these names. Isaiah Thomas at end, Jalen Redmond at tackle, and Perion Winfrey at nose. We think those are the starters. That sounds like a pretty good group. I mean, that sounds pretty solid to me. They're backed up by Reggie Grimes, maybe, Josh Ellison, Isaiah Coe, the new JUCO defensive tackle, LaRon Stokes, the senior returning starter, former Big 12 newcomer of the year, Jordan Kelly, Corey Roberson, Ethan Downs is going to get some time at end and might shift to outside linebacker. Who knows? And then speaking outside linebacker, we got that competition behind Nick Bonito at rush linebacker. Marcus Stripling, Nathan Rollins-Kabonje, maybe Downs slides out there, like I said, maybe Grimes, now that Joseph Wette has moved to inside linebacker, but does maybe Wette step out there and get a few snaps at rush? I mean, Ryan, this is an awesome position to watch Saturday. One of us has got to watch the DBs, and one of us has got to watch the D-line when the defense is on the field.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that this just kind of is a testament to what Grinch and that entire coaching staff have come along and done, that we're going to be watching very, very interested, especially the defense, all the way through the spring game, John. Like, I can't imagine that there's going to be a 5-minute window, even at the very end of the game, where when you start to look at the guys that are out there and go, gosh, none of these guys could ever be anything. I'm glad that they got their run out. Like, that is not the case anymore. The guys that are being brought in, are they all going to pan out? No, of course not. There's just a certain number of snaps that you can give at practice and in the games. Like, not every guy is going to be a breakout stud, but these guys could be. They've all got a physical tool or something that leaves that door open, that makes you optimistic that, hey, this is a role they could grow into. So it's going to be very interesting to see, especially that second rotation in. With the ones, with the guys we think they're going to be the ones, all eyes are going to be on Jalen Redmond, understandably opting back in. But I think that those second and third waves are just as compelling, because those are going to be the guys, like, you're looking for candidates of breakout guys. That's who came out of nowhere. And Isaiah Thomas last year, coming out of the spring game, were we saying that Isaiah Thomas is going to be openly campaigned for Big 12 Player of the Year? No. So there's one of those guys that could come in and be the story of the season in the fall, and it's going to start with little flashes here in the spring.
Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, Porter Moser has been busy. Also, Ryan has some seriously hot recruiting news for you guys. Guys, spring has sprung, and you know what that means. Lawnmowers, weed whackers. Listen, if you've got weeds sprouting up everywhere like the rest of us, then Manscaped has just what you need. They are the industry leader in men's grooming products below the waist or wherever you find those unwanted weeds. And we're going to tell you how to get 20% off your entire order. Ryan?
Yeah, John, look, we're on the other side of Easter. That means as planting season has arrived, you got to pull those weeds before any of the good stuff can come up. So that's what the Lawnmower 3.0 is exactly for, John. We've told you before, it's got that skin-safe ceramic blade, the LED light so you know exactly what you're doing. And hey, it's even got that great moisture-resistant coating on it, that outer body, so you can take it into the shower with you for all of your spring cleaning needs.
Now, just remember, Manscaped makes a great gift. I've told you before, Father's Day's coming up. I've ordered some for the men in my family. Don't wait till Christmas. That's too long. SI Sooners podcast listeners get 20% off, but you got to do it soon, right? It's the promo code SOON. You get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code SOON. SOON, promo code SOON. Manscaped. Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. You guys are cracking me up. Ryan, I feel like I've talked too much. I always feel like I've talked too much. I'm losing my voice again. I'm just going to turn this thing over to you and your vast knowledge of radio experience and how to keep this thing going. I was told this is the signal for keep it going. Keep it going. Stretch it out. Stretch it out. I'm going to let you talk about the new basketball talent that Porter Moser has been turning over. He's been turning and burning, basically, in the transfer portal. Okay, you got 10 minutes. Go.
10 minutes. Perfect. Let's buckle in.
But seriously, the three guys that he's brought in after all the talent that left, Tanner Groves, who's the Big Sky Player of the Year. His brother's Jacob Groves, who's a little more of a swing man, but very effective, very fundamental game. And then Jordan Goldwire from Duke. From Duke? Okay. Now you got 9 minutes, Ryan. Go.
Well, perfect. First off, anytime you bring in a Duke Blue Devil, that's going to really excite some people. The Sooners got in on that Tobacco Road, the Research Triangle trade, it looks like. Sending Brady Manick to North Carolina, bringing Goldwire in. But look, Goldwire, from what we know at Duke, he could turn out to be something totally different, playing under a new coach in a new system. But he's a very smart player, shooting guard type, will play off ball. He led the Blue Devils in assists last year, John, with 4 a game. Wasn't a massive score, but he's one of those guys that's going to come in, play great defense, and make great decisions with the basketball. So to me, if you're looking for portal guys, if you're going portal diving, that sounds like the ideal place to start. A building block type guy that can do exactly what we know Porter Moser wants him to do, which is play great defense, and then that'll lead to great offense in transition. If he's making the right decisions with the basketball, he can be one of those guys, one of those trigger men to initiate fast breaks and get OU running up and down the floor. Then you turn to the Groves brothers. They've already done something that OU fans are going to love, John, which is torch Kansas once. Both of them had great performances against the Jayhawks in the NCAA tournament, and you feel a big need, especially when you're talking about Tanner Groves. You're getting a dominant big as well, something that the Sooners haven't really had. You've had guys like Brady Manick, like Christian Doolittle, that are bigs, but that they kind of want to play more of a guard game, play on the wing offensively. They'll slide down low if they have to. No, this is a big that can get it done under the bucket, can feast down there, and it might be the best center play we've seen in Norman since Romero Osby, so that's going a way back. Then you bring in his brother as well. Like you said, he's that swing man that can play on the perimeter, and that's just something that you need. When you just look at the sheer numbers of guards and wings that the Sooners have lost in the portal, your Reeveses, your Davion Harmon, which it sounds more and more as time goes on that's going to be elsewhere. You've got, Phipps, who didn't really factor in this last year, but that's still a guard. You've got even Victor Iwuakor, that's technically a forward that can play on the wing, things like that. Like, you're going to have to replace all those guys, and you're bringing in another player that's productive in his own right. He's not just Tanner Groves' brother. He was a great player for Eastern Washington this past season. So Porter Moser, I think he's hit 3 big wins out of the park in the transfer portal so far. Does that mean you're going to end up with a Bryce Thompson? I would be surprised. You're obviously striking out on some of the other guys. The Creighton kid as well is one of those guys. But look, you're not going to get them all. And with the new coaching staff coming in, you've got 3 great foundational pieces. I think they're in a great spot. And it sounds like even you might get 2 years out of the Groves brothers.
Yeah, Ryan, I like all 3 of those guys. I like their game. In the Groves brothers now, you're talking about, you think the way basketball has evolved, you think you get a 6'9" guy who can shoot threes, right? Well, he's a 34% three-point shooter, I think, 34, 37, something like that. Same with his brother, around 34, 37%, whatever it was. They're probably mixed and matched. Anyway, you look at their overall shooting percentage and you're like, wait a minute, that's really good. Inside the three-point line, both guys are shooting 62%. I said 62%. What does that tell you? It means they work for layups, they know how to get mismatches, they know how to get down low, and they can hit a mid-range shot. So that's impressive. That's something that Porter Moser is going to really, really be able to exploit. And then, like you said, they almost cooked Kansas in the NCAA tournament. Both those guys had a great game against Kansas. I think 58 points combined. They lost the game, but and then you could pick up a guy who played at a school by the name of Duke for a coach by the name of Kay. So now it's on Moser to kind of figure out how to maximize what all the 3 of these guys can do and utilize them in a system. Simple as that, right? No problem. Here's the deal. Everything's new, and I think that sounds bad, right? Everything's new, sort of like, we got to learn a bunch of new stuff. Well, guess what? That's the way college basketball is now. I heard the most recent number in the transfer portal is like 1,400, which is, help me out on the math here, Apparently more than there are scholarships available for. I'm not sure I understand how that kind of math works. If a guy leaves school A, it opens up a scholarship. If he enrolls at school B, that fills that scholarship. I don't know. New math. Anyway, Ryan, we'd be remiss if we didn't tell people about the trip that you made to Dallas last weekend. Man, if I remember right, we actually pitched it last week, so we need to dive into that. 2 days on the grind for my man Ryan. I feel like he, I don't know, took the next step in his journalism career. He came back telling me some things that like a grizzled, seasoned journalism veteran would tell stories of guys and stuff. It was pretty great. Got a bunch of interviews, got a bunch of stories, got a bunch of videos, got a bunch of photos. And where can you find those? allsooners.com coming up. Ryan, what were your big takeaways from last weekend?
Well, the first one is that you mentioned it earlier in the podcast. You have barely left Casa de Hoover since all this started. I feel like we are living two very different experiences. I've been road tripping all over the place just in the last couple of months. But other than that, first off, we hit up the championship 7-on-7 event in Dallas. Over 100 teams coming from all over the country. There was a team from South Florida there. The Bootleggers 7-on-7 franchise from Louisiana was there. A lot of great athletes there. But the headline news was we saw a lot of great guys across the 2 days. And for a while there, it seemed like the OU connections just weren't going to be there. So while I'm doing some great work for our friends over at Sports Illustrated All-American and kind of building some of those bonds, I was worried, John, that it might be a little barren on just the strictly Oklahoma side. But don't worry. As you always say, the beat provides, and it provided in a big way as we stumbled upon Oklahoma wide receiver commit Jordan Hudson of Garland, Texas. His team, the New Breed, they made a run all the way to the finals, winning the entire thing, made it back in time from the Elite 11, which we'll get to in a second, to see Hudson and his team take on the College Station, basically, in the finals. And Jordan Hudson lived up to the billing, John. Every single time that he wanted the football, you could just tell. There was an explosiveness. There was a violence out of the breaks in his route running. And, of course, the ability to go up, high point that football up over defenders in traffic, bring the ball down, make those competitive catches. Basically, everything you've wanted to see out of an Oklahoma wide receiver, we saw it in about a 30-minute game of 7-on-7. So, very excited to see what he does. We have an interview with him that ran. It is on allsooners.com. Please go click on it. He goes into detail about his visit, his plans on his visit to Oklahoma, all that lovely stuff, and what he's looking forward to doing this fall before he graduates. So that was great on that front. And then we also got to attend the Elite 11 Dallas Regional, John, and you've got Quinn Ewers. He was formerly the Texas commit, now the Ohio State commit. You got Caleb Klubnik of Clemson. Those two guys really feel like they could be, they told our colleague, John Garcia of SI All-American, that they feel like they could be the next Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence type rivalry. They've got the schools right. They've got the talent right. And both of them stood out. And another guy, though, from an OU perspective that really impressed, Rangel, the Oklahoma State commit. He went in there and he held his own. I believe we ranked him in the top 5 of our composite rankings from the regional. So the Cowboys got themselves a good one. Another guy that's accurate, throws the ball with a lot of touch, has a very catchable ball too. He's not just rifled in there getting excited. It looks like the Cowboys got themselves a player that can really operate Mike Gundy's system down there in Stillwater. So something to look out for, obviously, as far as the 2022 recruiting goes for Oklahoma quarterbacks. You nailed the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, which means you might come up empty in 2022 and 2023. You'll have all eyes on Nelson down there in Southern California. So it's not a panic button moment by any means, but it is notable. The Cowboys got themselves a guy that looks like he could be a player. And I guess the important thing, too, is that Ewers going to Ohio State all the way. So one of the nation's best quarterbacks will not end up in Austin there from that.
I mean, Ryan, I went to the one here in Broken Arrow. It was like 4 miles from my house, kept you from having to go to Broken Arrow.
That's true.
I also went to one in Dallas. Come on, let's not. That's a long drive for me. That's like Dallas and back twice for you.
That's fair. You do double the time there.
Ryan, one other bit of news that we should get to. I hope nobody was planning to spend Saturday looking over through the binoculars over the jersey numbers, right, to find Obi Obialo, because he ain't on the roster anymore. He's just not. Now I'll say this: we don't know exactly why he's not on the roster. We don't know if it's like something perfectly innocent and he just, looked around the receiver room at all those talented young receivers and said, I think I'll hang up my cleats. Or if it's something a little darker and got himself into hot water, allegedly. We don't know. We're no idea why he's not on the roster. I asked the proper authorities, Ryan, and I was told to refer all questions about Obi to head coach Lincoln Riley, who I don't think is going to be available for comment. I don't think until after the scrimmage on Saturday. He might pop up tomorrow, about a 5% chance. We'll see. Anyway, Ryan, I was hoping a guy like Obi, who has been hurt a lot in his career from high school to OSU to Marshall to Oklahoma, I was hoping that he'd be able to come in and make some plays and end his career, the right way, catch a couple of touchdowns, whatever. I don't think that's going to be happening, at least not in Norman. Okay, Ryan, last thing. Did you watch softball last night?
I did.
All right. The Sooners, as we know now, will not finish the season undefeated. They will not run rule everybody. The streak is over. OU lost to Georgia 7-6 in 9 innings, and then they turned right around and promptly stomped Georgia into the dirt 12-3. Yeah, probably should have been 12-0. Had a freshman pitcher in last inning, whatever. Anyway, couple of things, Ryan. One, I've never seen a batter hit a ball over a fence and then forget to touch home plate. Baseball's been going on since like 1859 or something like that. I'm sure it's happened, but I've never seen it. I've never heard of it. That happened last night. Georgia did it. Speaking of Justin Fields' sister did it. Jaden Fields. She's unbelievable, though. Just a mental block right there where she hopped over the plate. Forgot to touch. She kind of redeemed herself, though, with an RBI, I think in the 7th, and then had the game-winning hit in the 9th. She's really good. I just thought OU was flat. Emotional rivalry series. Think about it. Against Texas, sweep the Longhorns, tell everybody about your RPI and flex, right? Do all that. And then you get on a plane and go to Athens and play a doubleheader. They were tired. They were sluggish. And then I thought the other thing, Ryan, I thought there might have been just a little fatigue lingering from that. Remember that last-minute bus trip to Ruston, Louisiana? Remember that? Rain out in Wichita, COVID in Waco. Hey, instead of taking some time to recover and recoup and kind of rebuild your bodies by resting, let's go get on a bus for 9 hours and go play a doubleheader. I thought that was a bad idea at the time. And I think I told you, Ryan, I'd have probably given the team the weekend off. But then they went and played those 2 games, and it's like, okay, still playing. But then you hear from Patty last night, Patty Gasso. She said basically, we needed to be humbled. We needed to see what it feels like to lose because we're not that good enough yet. We're not there yet. She said it. We're not good enough yet. And then post-game conversation I was having with my wife, we got our story filed at All Sooners. She reminded me, too, that trip to Louisiana, hey, man, it's all part of this process. They were supposed to go to Waco, but instead they went to Louisiana. How do you play when you're tired? That's what Patty wanted to see. Because you're going to get tired in the NCAA tournament. You're going to get tired in the regional. You're going to get tired in the Supers or the World Series. How does your body respond? And so I got to say, I've changed my mind. That was not a bad trip to Louisiana. Who cares if they lose? It does a body good to lose once in a while, Ryan. What this team wants is so much bigger than some, awesome winning streak.
Yeah, and I thought that, too, you walked into that exact situation that they're going to have to look to avoid, specifically in the Women's College World Series, which is you've got a team with one ace pitcher. Georgia's starting pitcher, forgive me, I'm forgetting her name right now. It's escaping my mind, but she's a stud. She held Florida, made them sweat it out, eke it out when they played in the SEC, all that stuff. And this team has to understand, and I'm sure they do by now. I'm sure they did before the Georgia game. They just had an off night. Is that when you carry around that huge record, when your lineup has the gaudy numbers that they've got, you're on pace to set all the records you want. You're going to get everyone's best shot because they're going to get so fired up knowing that's the only way they can go out and compete. So they had to deal with facing an ace pitcher like that. They still did their normal OU things. I just think they had a few errors mentally, just not really at their tip top. best behind the dish. And then in the field and in the circle, they had just one or two things that we haven't seen all year long from them. And it all came together. You just can't do that against a good team and win those every single time. Now, you turn around, John, and everyone's going to wonder, okay, so the winning streak is dead. What's the next narrative? How are they going to respond? Well, I think that they shut everybody else up. It's one of those situations that I'm sure they love just having 30 minutes to get straight back out there because they put it on the Dogs. So does this mean, oh my gosh, the Sooners are no longer the favorites to win the national championship? No, of course not. It's just another step, another learning moment, and they're showing that they're working their way through adversity just like everybody else. And ultimately, it's good for them. I think there'll be a little pressure that's kind of lifted off their shoulders, too. Now that they did drop the one, they can go off. They win a national championship, only have one loss. They'll still be right up there as one of the greatest teams to ever play if they go on to do that. And they won't have to have that pressure of carrying a 50-game win streak into Oklahoma City where you're trying to win a national championship.
Listen to the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts, or on your Amazon-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. Or you can always go to our website, allsooners.com, find our podcast there. It's on the link. Any player, listen on your phone, your tablet, your computer, or watch the video version on any device on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. For Ryan Chapman, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.